Hey everyone, it's Alyssa from Planet Alyssa. This is actually not just an Etsy video, but a more general video on selling online. As you're going out and sourcing new inventory at thrift stores or auctions or rummage sales or garage sales, you're probably going to run into a lot of the same items or types of items over and over again. So this video is about 8 different things that you're going to see all the time when you're out there, and how you can make money selling them, and probably the best places to sell them online. Books and media items. So this includes books as well as movies and music. Amazon got its start as an online bookstore, and then they realized they were so good at selling things that they just kept selling more and more things until you could buy pretty much anything under the sun at Amazon. But they are still pretty much a go-to place for books as well as media items, and as a seller, you're probably going to get the best price for your item selling via Amazon. When I started selling on Amazon, all I was selling was books, and sold books merchant fulfilled for several years. Not every book has value on Amazon. In fact, most of the books that you find when you're out there are not going to be worth anything. In books and media, as well as most other items, rarity will make an item more valuable. So mass marketed books have almost no value. Most fiction does not have value. There are exceptions with fiction if it's something that's a limited edition where there just weren't that many of the book published. But in most cases, you want to look for nonfiction, informational books that, again, are not mass marketed. So obscure topics, you want to look for books on the specific as opposed to the general. Books that have regional interest, anything that you come across that you haven't seen anything quite like it before, there's a good chance that it has value. One other thing that has value are textbooks, newer textbooks, simply because they start out so expensive, and so even used they tend to go for quite a few dollars. For books that you can't really make money on Amazon, you might still be able to break even or even make a little money selling books in book lots via eBay. You'll want to probably group them together by a specific genre, theme, author, some kind of topic. And you'll also want to ship them via media mail because it's a lot less expensive than trying to ship heavy books via priority mail or a parcel post. I do sell some vintage book lots as well on Etsy. Usually these, I'll put them together in a group either by color, just something as a decorator set, or by subject, topic matter. I will sell like a group of literary classics or maybe children's classics. Also, if it's a vintage book set where they all go together, I can sell them that way. Clothing and accessories. I do not really do much in terms of clothing. I do some accessories. I just don't really want to deal with clothing, but you will find clothing all over. I think every thrift store I've ever been in has some sort of clothing in it. Clothing is a restricted category on Amazon, so unless you have a store of your own, you would need that before you could get approval to sell clothing on Amazon. So your best bet with most newer clothing is to sell it on eBay, where you can sell either new or used clothing. New with tags will probably fetch a little bit more money, but used items that are in good condition from better brands, better labels, will sell well. And again, if it's not such a high-end item, but you can group them together in a lot, obviously someone's probably going to want them all to be the same size and, a similar kind of style or similar item. Vintage apparel does very well on Etsy and will fetch quite a bit of money if it's a nice item, it has good vintage style, and is in good condition. So you might be better off listing vintage apparel on Etsy as opposed to eBay. Games and puzzles. The problem with board games is that they can be pretty expensive to ship if you are shipping them out yourself. They do oftentimes they fit in the large flat rate box, the board game box, but this is still an expensive way to ship something that might not be worth that much money. On the other hand, you can sell games via Amazon FBA, and this means that you could stick games in a box with a whole bunch of other stuff and ship it off to an Amazon warehouse and not have to pay a small fortune to ship your board game out. So for most board games, I would say Amazon FBA is your best bet. You can sell new ones, of course. You could also sell used ones if they are in good condition. You'll want to check and make sure all the pieces are there. And again, like with books, like with anything else, rarity is going to make something more valuable. So a game that's very common, maybe like Scrabble or Sorry, probably is not going to be worth it for you to sell on Amazon. But if you come across games that you've never seen before, check them out, see what they're going for on Amazon. You might be surprised and find a few gems. Puzzles, I would stay away from used puzzles, but I do sometimes find new ones, sealed packages, and these often I sell on Amazon. The problem with used ones is you need to check to see if the pieces are there, and unless you really like putting puzzles together, that is going to take way too much time and just not be worth it. Sewing kits, I do find these all the time. These are different like cross-stitch kits or embroidery kits. If they are older, vintage ones, I do usually sell them on Etsy. There's a pretty good market for vintage sewing kits on Etsy. They're nice and easy to ship, so there's that. And usually they're things that you can't always find anymore. And people on Etsy, as you might know, it started out more as a craft site, a site to sell handcrafted items. So there are a lot of crafters on Etsy. There are also people who sell supplies on Etsy. So craft kits, vintage craft kits are a perfect fit for the Etsy marketplace. But newer sewing kits can do well on Amazon, and this is something you could sell merchant fulfilled because it is nice and easy to ship and store, or you can send it off to FBA, which I do with a lot of the different sewing kits that I come across. You'll want to look for new sealed ones. Obviously ones that have been partly used or partly made don't really have any value. Electronics and appliances. This can be a tricky area to get into because with electronics you're going to have to test them out, and sometimes there's things you can't easily test. But this depends, depending on the item, the condition, if it has a box. You might want to sell it on Amazon where you could probably get a little bit more money for it, but you could also sell on eBay, and you'll just have to do your homework and see where you can get the most money for it. With some items, you actually will make more money by parting out the different pieces than selling it as a whole. And this could also be good if you happen to wind up with something that's incomplete. Last spring, I was at a rummage sale and found this pretty cool pasta maker in the box. It was a great deal. I think I paid like $2 for it. And it was a nice machine, all metal. But unfortunately, when I got it home, I realized one of the parts to it was missing. But when I looked it up, I realized I could sell the different parts to it on eBay and make more money than I could have selling the whole machine, so that was great. In the fall, I bought a mixer in a box lot at an auction. It was a stand mixer that I bought for $3, and I bought it for myself because I needed one and it looked like it was in great condition, and it was. But out of curiosity, when I got home, I just checked to see what I could have gotten for it on eBay. It was going for, I think, around $30, $40 on eBay. But what I noticed when I looked it up was that the beaters alone were selling for about $30 on eBay. So always check. You never know. It might not be worth it to you to sell a whole appliance, but you know, if you can get a whole mixer for $3 and just sell the beaters for $30, hey, and you have an easy way of disposing of or donating the rest of the mixer, go for it. New sealed items, which you can actually find at thrift stores, even though they are secondhand stores. People get things, they buy things that they end up not using, they receive things as gifts, and they end up donating them to the thrift store. Sometimes these items will be priced a little higher, sometimes they won't. I've found all sorts of things, toys, kitchen things, various items for the home, electronics, all in sealed packages and brand new condition, and these I often can sell on Amazon. It's worth checking out. Sometimes they're not worth that much, sometimes they're worth quite a bit of money, and I usually ship them off FBA to Amazon. And the other end of the spectrum is antique and vintage items, which, you know, there's stores are full of them and rummage sales are full of them. Not all of them are worth money. In general, most of the antique and vintage items I come across, I sell on Etsy. I do look for things that have a cool style, things that are mid-century modern or nice worn primitive look can do really well on Etsy. Old stuff that you can't quite find anymore, backgammon sets and rotary telephones, I sell on a regular basis on Etsy. Collectible items usually do pretty well on eBay. eBay kind of got its start more doing collectible stuff. Those of us who have been doing it for a long time remember the Beanie Baby craze. And of course things like Pez dispensers and, Matchbox cars, collectible ones have always done pretty well on eBay. But yeah, things like figurines, plush, other collectible items, probably your best bet is eBay. There is a pretty good market for that on eBay. Although occasionally you'll come across something that's brand new, sealed collectible, you might be able to get more money for it on Amazon. And occasionally I list certain collectible items in my Etsy shop. So that's just a real quick rundown of some things you're going to find all the time, and usually you can make money selling them online. It depends on how they are priced and, the condition of the item, but pretty much you can make a steady income flipping these different items.